So you are alive. Wednesday will be so disappointed. She was so hoping to practice her taxidermy. You know how girls her age are. Lurch found you swimming in Aristotle's pond. Though you might find it easier with your head above the water next time. What's that? You were drowning. Well, it's a lovely day for it. I did bring you some things, in case you had survived. Would you like some tea? Yes. Take a sip. I'll let you guess the secret ingredient. What do you think? Positively vile. You flatter me. I have some books from the library, if you'd care to join me. I thought perhaps some light reading before bed. Yes, take a seat. I have a lovely candle to set the ambiance. It's scented with spiced vanilla and patchouli. You know, wars have been raging over the vanilla trade for decades. Homes lost, lives lost. Why, you can almost smell it. Set it to the side for now and get out my books. I have here a selection of books from the local library that I thought we could read together, or at least peruse. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 books. So let's take a closer look, shall we? Our first book is a short history of tomb raiding, the epic hunt for Egypt's treasure. Detailing grave robbing, jewelry thieves, and the unearthing of the ancient undead. Brings me back to my honeymoon. You see inside, I have several markers. Yes. Ah, yes. My desire is not yet quenched by your love, my wanton little jackal cub. My lust for you I cannot forego, though I be beaten and driven off, to dwell in the delta marshes. Gomez spoke these words to me on a starless night beneath the pyramids of Giza. In the lights of translunar bodies, Adrasai said that a seeker-in-chief gave him a book on the sciences of hidden treasure, with directions on how to find them. He also relates the eerie tale of treasure hunters who entered the pyramid and lost one of their crew in their process. After 3 days of searching, they were about to give up when his head sprouted from a wall of the structure, his face red with the strain of shouting, something in what they presumed to be an ancient language. The terrified treasure hunters fled the scene and hastened to find a Coptic monk to translate. It turned out to be a frenzied warning. This is the fate of those who violate the sanctity of kings in their homes, the trapped man cried, an admonishment that appears to be the moral of the story. Treasure hunting manuals like the one they received often highlights the physical dangers seekers face. They could be buried alive in collapsing rubble, drowned in rising groundwater, or suffocated by noxious fumes. Such accidents were typically blamed on jinn, the otherworldly beings believed to guard treasures, and stories about treasure hunting mishaps reinforced those beliefs. It's possible the seekers circulated the story as a scare tactic. Those who deplored the destruction of monuments by treasure hunters related them to discourage vandalism. But whether or not they had an agenda, everyone who transmitted these accounts saw the supernatural as a genuine force to be reckoned with. What's that? You feel ill? Positively dreadful? Do you promise? Well, no need to rub it in. Do I have something for pain? Why, yes. I have this beautiful carbon steel I see. For pain relief. If you're sure that's what you want, I'll see what I have for you. Granny boils herbs for warts. She wanted more of them. It's very dusty, but you can see inside. We have some beautiful herbs. Granny boils petals for poison. Nope. Granny boils petals for pain. Granny boil. Oh no, never put a lid on Granny boil. Why, how else would her ghost be free to roam the halls? Nothing gets me to sleep, quite like her cries. I'm not quite sure if it's dust on my fingers or Granny Boyle. Petals for me. You're no fun. One must be quite careful in choosing which of these jars to enter. They look quite alike. Poor Granny Boyle made that mistake. She never liked to wear her glasses. I'll let you pick. Just one. Place it under your tongue and let it melt. It tastes like liver. I know, that's the best part. I might have one just for fun. Do you feel better? Yes. Shame. Up next, we have gruesome spectacles, botched execution, and America's death penalty. Perfect bedtime story for any child. Gomez picked it out for the baby. Ah yes, William Kemmler. At 5 o'clock in the morning on August 6th, 1890, Warden Charles Durston woke William Kemmler in his Auburn prison cell. Just over 60 minutes later, Kemmler would become the first man put to death in the electric chair. In his final hour, he ate a small breakfast, spoke with the prison chaplain, and participated in a religious service. At 6:38 a.m., just 30 minutes after the witnesses arrived at the prison, Kemmler, wearing a new grey and yellow suit and looking serene, entered the death chamber behind Durston. Quote, the coolest man in the party was about to be killed in what would be forever known as a horrible, ghastly, and bungling job. In fact, you know, we have our own electric chair in the sitting room, if you'd like to try it out yourself. We don't have the sponge for your head. Pugsley lost it at his birthday party. But it's just as fun without. No? You're lost. The Secret History of Freemasonry, a complete illustrated reference to the Brotherhood of Masons, covering 1,000 years of ritual and rites, signs and symbols, from ancient foundation to the modern day. Pugsley picked this one out. Don't worry, I told him, college first, Egyptian influences. According to Masonic legend, Freemasonry is as old as architecture itself. It is therefore not surprising that in Masonic mythology it is held that the prototypes of initiatory architecture were Egyptian. Ancient Egypt was the home of Hermetic magic, developed by the Egyptian priests who venerated the god Hermes Trismegistus as the messenger of the gods, the herald, the keeper of mysteries, and the god of trial and initiation. This god was an important figure for Freemasons. Accordingly, sphinxes, pyramids, and obelisks all feature prominently in Masonic architecture as symbolic expressions of Masonic ideals. The Great Pyramid. As far as its rituals are concerned, modern Freemasonry has certainly been influenced by the ancient Egyptian beliefs, though there are no hard historical evidence to support this. According to mythology, the foundations of the Masonic Brotherhood date back to the origins of architecture itself. Hence, it is argued there must be a link between Masonry and the pyramids. The oldest example of monumental architecture to survive. Up next, we have Unsolved Murder. I do so enjoy the cover of this one. The deep crimson hues truly reflect the content. I picked out a few cases from this book that I thought might be interesting to you. I do so hope you don't mind. Don't worry, pick the worst ones. Deep Waters. By an extraordinary twist of fate, a human arm expelled by a shark became the first link in a bizarre chain of events involving smuggling, blackmail, and murder. What more could a girl want? It was a balmy spring afternoon on the 17th of April 1935. Bert Hobson and his son Ron were fishing from a 3.6 metre or 12-foot launch off Maroubra Point in Coogee, Sydney, Australia. Dissatisfied with their catch so far, they put out said lines, baited with horse mackerel, before returning home for the evening. The following morning, they returned to see if their said lines had caught anything profitable. They were surprised to discover a tiger shark, 14 foot and 6 inches. The shark had been lured to the set line to feast on a smaller shark that had become tangled. The Hobsons managed to capture the tiger shark and then sold it to the local aquarium, which happened to be run by Bert's brother Charlie. The worldwide economic depression of the 1930s had hit Sydney hard, and Charlie Hobson hoped this exciting addition would attract visitors willing to pay a bit extra to see the impressive shark fed twice a day. On the afternoon of 25th of April, 8 days after the shark had been caught, a grisly discovery surfaced in the shark's tank. Fortunately, only a few people were present when the aquarium's prize attraction started to thrash about, almost as if it was about to jump out of the pool. Moments later, a human arm, clearly expelled by the shark, was spotted bobbing in the water. While Bert Hobson used a stick to keep this gruesome find close to the side of the tank, in case the huge shark tried to swallow it again. The police were immediately informed and rushed to the scene. To their surprise, the arm appeared to be in a fair state of preservation. Generally, the gastric juices of a shark would digest human flesh within a day. However, the stress and shock of being captured and put on display may have slowed the shark's digestive processes. A piece of rope was tied around the wrist, and on the inside forearm was a tattoo of 2 sparring boxers. I can show you the tattoo if you like. This picture here. Gradually, theories as to whose arm it was started to build. Some wondered whether the arm had been discarded by a doctor or medical student, while others suggested, rather fancifully, that the arm could have belonged to a man who committed suicide by plunging into the ocean. Due to decomposition, fingerprints was not easy to find. Medical examiners had to carefully remove skin from the fingers and then slip it over their own gloved fingers. Police received their first lead when a man named Edwin Smith recognized the tattoo. Edwin's brother James had been missing since the 7th of April. After telling his wife he was going on a fishing trip with a companion. James was 45 years old, English-born and a criminal, police informant and an ex-boxer who lived in Sydney. Fingerprints confirmed that the arm did indeed belong to him. It was initially assumed that this discovery was simply evidence of yet another tragic shark attack. However, further examination revealed something far more disturbing. It was clear that the arm had not been bitten off at all. It had been severed with a knife. The focus on the investigation suddenly shifted to murder. Thanks to Edwin Smith's information, the police at least knew who the arm belonged to. However, they were now faced with arguably the most bizarre case they'd ever encountered. In an article dated 15th of June 1935, detectives freely admitted that they were facing a problem seemingly devised by one of the cleverest killers in the history of Sydney. I won't tell the whole story. I'll let you read it in depth later if you'd like. However, in summary, the man was found to have various criminal dealings relating to the cocaine trade in Sydney, which led to many theories, including a drug deal gone wrong, money lenders getting rid of him, as well as other shady dealings. Eventually a man came forward as a witness for his murder trial. However, he was found shot dead in his car. The killer has never been brought to justice. Had the trial taken place in modern times, perhaps the outcome would have been different. In the past, murder convictions without a body were rare, but modern developments in forensic science have made it much more likely that a conviction could be obtained today. The skeleton in the woods. Was she a German spy, the victim of a black magic ritual, or just an unfortunate vagrant? Who Bella really was is just one of this murder mystery's unanswered riddles. More than 75 years have passed since a woman's skeleton was found stuffed inside a witch elm in a park in Worcester during World War II. Following this grim discovery, cryptic graffiti asking the question, "Who put Bella in the witch tree?" started to appear around the district. Bizarre theories of German spies and witchcraft rituals keep this local legend alive, and the strange and sinister tales of Bella still captivate armchair detectives today. Despite a lengthy police investigation and a plethora of plausible and not so plausible theories, the identities of the woman nicknamed Bella and that of her killer remain a mystery. The story of the case begins in a fittingly dramatic fashion. As dusk was falling on the 18th of April 1943, 4 teenage boys were cautiously trudging through Hagley Woods. This stretch of woodland was situated on the grounds of the impressive Hagley Hall estate, which belonged to Lord Cobham. The 4 boys, Bob Hart, Tom Willets, Fred Payne, and Bob Farmer, were trespassing, braving the dangers of getting caught by an angry gamekeeper. They were looking for some excitement to take their minds off the nightly German bombing raids, which were wreaking havoc in Birmingham, their hometown. They had their dogs with them, and were hoping to supplement the family's meager meat ration with a poached rabbit or 2. After a while, Bob Farmer spotted a witch elm, named for its strange appearance, and decided to climb it, hoping to find a bird's nest. He clambered up and peeked down into the hollow trunk. A glimmer of white convinced him that he had hit the jackpot. However, the object lodged in the middle of the tree was not a bird's nest. Bob pulled it out and found himself staring at a skull whose empty eye sockets seemed to stare right back at him. At first he thought the skull was the animal, until he noticed clumps of what looked like human hair clinging to it, and crooked teeth protruding from its mouth. The boys fled the woods, promising each other never to tell a soul about what they had found, for fear of trouble. Despite the promises they had made, the seriousness of their find weighed heavily on 17-year-old Tom Willets. Shortly after he returned home, he told his parents about what he had found. The area was soon cordoned off. Inside the ominous-looking tree, they found a woman's skeleton. Disturbingly, her hand was missing. The bones were discovered scattered across the tree. A cheap imitation gold ring and a size 5.5 shoe were also found a short distance away. Scraps of poor quality clothing hung from the bones, and a piece of fabric was stuffed inside the mouth of the skull, indicating that the victim had been suffocated. The medical examiner concluded that the woman was around 35, had light brown hair, and was 5 foot tall. He also determined that the woman had been a mother to one child in her lifetime, and estimated that she had been dead for 18 months. Professor Webster's findings made him certain that the death of this woman was murder, stating, "I cannot imagine a woman accidentally slipping in there, neither do I find it reasonable that she would crawl into there to die." He also concluded that the woman had been placed inside the hollow trunk before decomposing. Following the finding, the local police contacted every dentist in the area, hoping that one of them would recognize the woman's distinct teeth. They looked through piles of missing persons reports to match them. The investigation then turned towards the personal effects found at the scene. The shoes were traced to a Waterford company. Investigators were able to find the owners of all but 6 pairs of the shoes, which had been sold at a market. The complexity of the investigation caused the trail to become colder with every passing week. The numerous tragedies of war soon distracted public police attention. The woman remained unidentified, and the case was quietly forgotten about. Then, about 6 months later, mysterious graffiti began to appear. The first message, written in chalk on the side of a house nearby, read, "Who put Luabella down the witch elm?" This was the first time that a name had been connected to the deceased woman. Over the next month, many similar messages appeared, all written with the same handwriting. Gradually, they took on the same word form. "Who put Bella in the witch elm?" The graffiti rang with the implication that someone knew who killed Bella. But appeals by police to find the artist all proved unsuccessful. In the late 1940s, new messages started to appear asking the same questions. Was this a clue or a taunt? The case became a whodunit that gripped the nation. The combination of the mysterious messages and the lack of an identity for the victim prompted some fanciful theories. One notion that surfaced early on in the investigation was that Bella could have been the victim of black magic. According to local anthropologists, the fact that her hand was severed from her arm and the bones scattered is similar to an occult ceremony known as the Hand of Glory. She also concluded that the murder was somehow connected to another case potentially involving witchcraft, the murder of Charles Walton, who was stabbed and pinned to the ground with his own pitchfork, developing the theory that witchcraft was involved. It was noted that the plant belladonna, as well as deadly nightshade and witch hazel, are both widely associated with the occult, and, according to local legend, so is Halloween. The fact that Bella was entombed inside a tree rather than being buried was also indicative of a ritualistic slaying, according to Professor Murray. The theory that Bella was executed for some crime against a coven quickly gathered steam and remains a favorite theory even today. Investigators working on the case, however, dismissed the theory, declaring that the bones from her hand had simply been scattered by animals. Other less interesting theories include being a spy for the Germans, though I like to think it was the occult. Another theory mentioned here is simply that she was drunk and climbed into the tree, which seems unlikely. To this day, no answers have ever been found for this poor woman's case. I do so hope her spectre would reach out and perhaps solve mystery. Campsite of horrors. This seemingly motiveless attack on 4 sleeping teenagers in a famous Finnish beauty spot has passed into the darkest annals of unexplained crimes. Finland's beautiful Lake Bodom is situated near the southern city of Espoo. Between June and August, the sun does not set. Temperatures soar, and Finns of all ages flock to the lake to celebrate the arrival of summer and the passing of the long, freezing winter. It was in this carefree spirit that on the 4th of June 1960, 4 teenagers pitched their tent on the lake's tranquil shores. Mila Ermeli Björklund and Anja Tulikimäki, both 15, and their boyfriend, Seppo Antero Boisman and Niels Wilhelm Gustafsson, both 18, had planned an evening of fishing and camping. After riding their motorcycles to Lake Bodom from their hometown of Vantaa, the teenagers chose a spot shaded by birch trees along the idyllic Finnish bay. They spent the evening chatting, swimming and fishing, completely oblivious to the horrors that would soon unfold at their campsite. Between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., the sleeping teenagers were brutally attacked. They were bludgeoned with a heavy object, possibly a large rock, and slashed and stabbed with a knife, although the murder weapon would never be found. The following morning, a local carpenter named Risto Siren stumbled across the grim scene while out for a swim with his son. Miraculously, Nils was unconscious but still clinging to life. He was the sole survivor of a brutal attack, but was not without injury. He suffered from concussion, fractures to the jaw, bruises on his face, and stab wounds. When he came to, he stated that he had no recollection of the attack, owing to shock. My last memory is of when we went to bed and wished each other good night. After that, I don't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday when I woke up, he stated. Of all the victims, Nils' girlfriend, Mila, sustained the most vicious attacks. She was discovered lying on top of the tent with her underwear removed, and she had significantly more stab wounds than the others. The cluster of wounds had been inflicted post-mortem, with the majority on her neck. That is awful, and not in a good way. An investigation of the crime scene revealed that the killer had not entered the tent, but had attacked the teenager from outside it as they slept. The tent had at least 25 slashes. Several items belonging to the teenagers appeared to have been stolen, including a wallet and items of clothing. 2 boys had been birdwatching near the crime scene, came forward to tell the police they had seen a blonde-haired man walking away from the collapsed tent at approximately 6 a.m. These young eyewitnesses would later undergo hypnosis in the hope that they could provide more information. While they had no further details, their story remained the same, and a composite sketch of this unidentified man was drawn. Nils, the survivor, would also undergo hypnosis. During his session, he recollected a vision of a figure coming towards him, clad in black, with glaring red eyes. Over time, several individuals became suspects in the gruesome triple murder. One of the most plausible among the locals was Carl, a kiosk vendor at the lake. Carl was known for his aggressive behavior towards campers. On occasion, he would slash the ropes of tents so that they would collapse. The author of The Legend of Bodom recalled how he was once the victim of Carl's anger when he was a teenager, and Carl had thrown rocks at him. Many locals found it extremely suspicious, following the murders, that Carl filled in a well at his property, because the murder weapons had never been discovered. There were those who suspected that they had been interred in the well. In 1969, Carl drowned in the lake. He had never been fully investigated as a suspect for the murders. His wife had provided a seemingly ironclad alibi for him, claiming that he was in bed asleep. However, shortly before his wife passed away, she confessed that his alibi was false, and claimed that he had threatened to kill her and their children if she refused to cover for him. It seems strange that this case isn't solved with evidence like that. The case went on to investigate Nils, the survivor. However, no real evidence against him was ever found, and it was doubtful that he would have been able to perform the murders, hide the murder weapons, without being seen in such a short time frame before lying down to sleep next to the bodies. The Lake Bodom murders have haunted Finland for decades, inspiring books, conspiracy theories, movies, and even a death metal band named Children of Bodom. The mystery surrounding the identity of the killer or killers, as well as the killer's motive, have elevated the case to a quasi-mythical status. 3 generations of children have grown up being told not to stay out too late for fear of the Bodom murderer. As long as the killer is unidentified, this fear shall remain. Wednesday has long been interested in the solving of crimes and mysteries such as these. I do so hope that one day she might be able to give out such violence to those that would perpetrate such crimes. I would be so proud. Next up, we have Jack the Ripper. This book covers his crime scenes from across Victorian London. I'll read you just a brief summary. Emma Elizabeth Smith struggled to reach her lodgings in George Street, which ran between the notorious Flower and Dean Street and Wentworth Street in the heart of the worst slum in London. She lived at number 18, one of several common lodging buildings in a depressing row of dilapidated 3-story buildings. It was the early hours of Tuesday, 3rd of April 1888, and bitterly cold. Emma was in considerable pain, for only a few hours earlier, a mere 300 yards from her lodgings, she would be attacked and brutally assaulted, and would later die from those injuries. This book contains many images of the dark, bleak and dreary streets of London. How I would love to visit, if not just to experience them myself, and breathe in the wonderful smog. The murder of Mary Ann Nichols on 31st of August 1888 drove home the commonalities of the victims of these unusual attacks. They were undoubtedly of the same class, coming from respectable origins, but doomed to fail by their circumstance and proclivity for alcohol. They appeared to be attracted to the East End by the availability of cheap lodgings, and all lodged within a few yards of each other. Nichols, like Emma Smith and Martha Tabram before her, had been reduced to a life of day-to-day survival, and with little or no other options had taken to the streets. They were incredibly vulnerable, and the places they chose to operate were dangerous by their isolation. If these murders were by the same hand, the killer had chosen his targets, and they were certainly easy ones. A good example of the violence inflicted on the vulnerable women of the East End can be seen in the case of Annie Melwood, who on the 25th of February was admitted to the Whitechapel Workhouse Infirmary after being stabbed. Millhouse was a 38-year-old widow and possibly a prostitute. She had been living at Spitalfields Chambers, a common lodging house at 8 White's Row, a street in the heart of Spitalfields' most notorious district. While this description of the stabbing is rather vague, the injuries described by a newspaper at the time were very specific. It appears the deceased was admitted to Whitechapel Infirmary, suffering from numerous stabs in the legs and lower parts of the body. She stated that she had been attacked by a man who she did not know, and who stabbed her with a clasp knife, which he took from his pocket. No one appears to have seen the attack, and as far as at present ascertained, there was only the woman's statement to bear out the allegations of an attack, though that she had been stabbed cannot be denied. Annie Melwood survived the assault and made a complete recovery, only to die of natural causes. In April, her death was not linked in any way to the attack, but the stabbing itself in the specific target of the lower abdomen and thighs has since been perceived as an interesting precursor to the crimes that would follow. Next, I have some cookbooks of a variety, but I thought we could take a look together. First up, we have Heston's Fantastical Feast. I don't know this Heston, but with his little bald head, he reminded me so of our dear Uncle Fester. The cover is this beautiful deep magenta pink with golden lettering and a golden frame, which I must say I do quite enjoy. There's one section in particular that took my interest, titled The Gothic Horror Feast. I'll read you out the menu if you'd like. It's written beautifully on these black pages with ornate golden decorations and patterns of bats and vampires dotted about. Our first course is Jekyll and Hyde's bubbling potion of transformation, gin and tonic, green gin spheres, and effervescing gin aroma. For starters, we have Dracula's Little Bites, beetroot and blood civet spelt, with nitro-frozen horseradish cream, charred pickled beetroots, fennel salad, and deep-fried impaled garlic butter snails. I find all food is more delicious when it's impaled. For our main course, we have Hestonstein's Monster, 72-hour ribs, heart of palm, spinal column, deep-fried brains within a brain, bone marrow served in the bone, as it should be, and deep-fried crispy eel bones. For dessert, we have the Gourmand's Graveyard, edible gravestones filled with pistachio, ice cream, and coated in white chocolate. Chocolate biscuit soil, coffins filled with mousse, and white chocolate breasts. Sounds like I have my Christmas dinner sorted. It includes the recipes for each course, which I must say look rather spectacular. Oh yes, you can see here he's serving the brain within a skull, as he should. Oh yes, and the spare ribs, nestled deliciously between the ribs that were not spare. I've always wondered who it is that has all these spare ribs to sell. It's very generous of them, wouldn't you agree? Here, as he pictured the edible graveyard, looks most delicious. Up next, we have this, the prison cookbook, detailing the inedible slop fed to criminals and inmates over the years. I simply knew I had to get it for my mom. She does all the family cooking, you see. Here we have the section for prison diet, which they have kindly included ingredients, methods, and instructions. Recipes include boiled bacon, placing the pieces of bacon to be cooked into boiling water, add cold water and cover, bring to the boil and reduce the heat. Allow to cook for 2.5 to 3 hours. I've noticed that cocoa is a theme in this book. They seem to love to give it to prisoners. Cocoa as a beverage is more nourishing than tea or coffee. It possesses a stimulating principle called theobromine, similar to theine in tea and caffeine in coffee. It is cooked with a mixture of arrowroot and sugar and fat, and it requires 20 to 30 minutes boiling Ah, yes, my favorite. Gruel. Ingredients: coarse oatmeal, water, and plenty of salt. Mix the oatmeal in a pan with sufficient cold water to form a paste. Heat up the remainder of water and boil it, and stir in the oatmeal. Add plenty of salt and simmer for 20 minutes until it forms a textureless sludge. Beef tea. Beef tea must be heated to 150 degrees until the fat and the albumin of the meat coagulate. When beef tea is made in large quantities, it is desirable to prepare it in a beef tea cauldron. Cauldron is always the answer. Ingredients: beef, bones, skin, gristle and fat. Shred the meat, mince it, put it in a pan with water and salt, allow it to stand for 1 hour, and then cook it in a cauldron for 4 or 5 hours. There are other recipes, although they don't sound quite as delicious as the ones I read to you. Last but not least, I have a book that I found personally quite horrifying. So prepare yourself. Even touching it sends shivers down my spine, and not in the nice way. It is titled From My Mother's Kitchen. Now, I could forgive the garish recipes within it. However, the pastels, simply ghastly. Wouldn't you agree? Simple recipe for classic comfort food. I'll be the judge of that. I believe when I looked through this book, I misunderstood some of the names of the dishes, namely this one. Ratatouille. I became quite excited when I first saw this. However, upon reading the recipe, it doesn't contain any rats. But by then I'd already marked it. Similarly, this dish, titled Sausage and Bacon Toad in a Hole, perked my keen interest. But likewise, it doesn't contain any toads, although Mama says she's happy to improvise. Ah yes, the Mississippi mud pie. It's very different than our family version. They substitute their mud with chocolate. What do they teach in school these days? I'll have to be quite careful to keep this book away from Wednesday. She's terribly allergic to such colours, you know. You look positively faint. Are you alright? You dozed off for a little, didn't you? Perhaps you need some more rest on that lovely nail bed. Brush that feathery thing called hair away from your face. If I didn't know better, I think perhaps you were an Addams. No, just wandered in. I see. Well, you're safe now, little pet. Come, drink more of your tea. That's it. Yes, well, don't be alarmed if you hear screams in the night. It's probably Fester. He has the most wonderful nightmares. You're getting drowsy. Your vision blurring. Good. It's probably all the cyanide. Oh, don't worry. That just means it's working.